The stars shone cold and bright as Commander Zorak's ship moved through the darkness of space. He was the war hero of the Zinthar Empire, a name that brought fear to hundreds of worlds. No planet had ever survived his invasion. No army had ever made him doubt his power. Until now, his next target was small, blue and silent. They called it Earth. Zorak stood before the great window of his command deck, his glowing eyes studying the planet below. He had seen many worlds, some full of fire, some of ice, but none so strange as this one. Primitive species, his second officer said. They still use metal bullets and fossil energy. Zorak gave a small smile, his sharp teeth shining. Then this will be quick, he replied. The fleet began its descent, massive ships cutting through the clouds like burning meteors. Cities below turned night into day as humans looked up, confused and afraid. In the capital, people ran through the streets, sirens screamed and lights flashed across the sky. Zorak's army landed in formation, each soldier armed with plasma rifles and armored suits. They expected surrender. They expected begging. They expected weakness. But what they found was something else. The humans did not run far. They did not hide long. They turned around, picked up their weapons, and faced the aliens with shaking hands and steady eyes. Zorak watched the first human resistance through his visor feed. Small groups of soldiers fighting tanks they couldn't defeat. Old men throwing bottles of fire. Children helping to reload guns. It made no sense to him. Why fight when defeat was certain? Why die when you could kneel and live? The battle was short but strange. Humans were losing, yet something in their faces did not look like loss. They smiled, they shouted, they sang even as the bombs fell. Zorak ordered his soldiers to capture the survivors for study. But by morning, half of his units had gone missing. The forests near the landing zone were silent. Too silent. When patrols went to search, they never returned. Reports filled Zorak's console. His soldiers claimed they saw shadows moving without heat. They heard whispers in the dark. One patrol said they found a human bunker filled with nothing but recorded laughter. Another squad said a human soldier ran into their camp holding a grenade and a smile. Then silence. Zorak clenched his metallic fist. He had fought creatures with claws and venom, but never something that smiled while dying. At dawn, he walked outside his ship, the air thick with smoke and burnt metal. The human city below was ruined, but the feeling of victory was missing. His soldiers looked tired, not from battle but from fear. Zorak raised his voice. We are conquerors of galaxies. We will not be stopped by these creatures. But deep inside he felt something he had not known before. Unease. That night he stood alone by the ruins. He saw movement among the wreckage, small lights flickering like fireflies. Through his scanner, he saw humans again, wounded, dirty but alive. They were helping each other, pulling survivors from the rubble, no weapons, no ships, no hope. Yet they kept moving. Zorak whispered to himself, "What are these beings?" Suddenly his communicator crackled. "Commander, another squad is gone." His officer's voice trembled. "How?" Zorak demanded. "Unknown," the voice replied. But before they vanished, they sent a message. Just one sentence. Zorak's eyes narrowed. "Play it." The message played through the static. A human voice, calm and low. "If you think we are weak, you have already lost." The commander stood still, the wind blowing across the destroyed city. For the first time in his long life, he felt a strange chill run through his armor. Not from cold, but from something deeper, something he had never faced before, fear. As the twin moons rose over Earth's horizon, Zorak looked up and said quietly, "Maybe this planet is not like the others." He turned back to his ship, and somewhere in the distance, the humans watched him too. Hidden in the smoke, their eyes glowing with something stronger than any weapon, will. The invasion had just begun, but already the greatest warrior in the galaxy had learned his first lesson. Humans might break, humans might fall, but they never truly surrender. And that thought followed him into the dark sky like a ghost. Smoke still covered the sky after the first invasion wave. The alien fleet had turned cities into ashes, but the humans were not finished. They were broken, scattered, and wounded, yet something inside them refused to die. Commander Zorak stood on the command bridge. Watching live footage from the surface, his soldiers were marching through ruins, hunting for survivors, but the strange thing was, the humans did not hide for long. They kept coming back. Every time his army cleared a zone, new fighters appeared from nowhere, men, women, even young people carrying old rifles and homemade bombs. Zorak's second officer, Vekran, looked at the monitor and frowned. These creatures don't understand defeat. Commander, he said. Zorak answered in a cold voice. No, Vekran, they understand it very well. They just refuse to accept it. He zoomed in on one human soldier running across a burning street, carrying another man on his shoulder. Bullets and fire all around, yet the human didn't stop. Strange species, Zorak whispered. Across the planet, communication lines were broken. Governments had fallen, yet small groups of humans started to rise. They used radio waves, old satellites, and even printed notes to spread messages. They called themselves the Resistance. Zorak's scanners could not track them. His drones were shot down by unseen snipers. His armored squads were ambushed in tunnels and forests. It was as if the Earth itself was fighting back. Zorak ordered his troops to destroy everything in sight. But for every human they killed, two more seemed to appear. One night, during a patrol in the ruins of New York, an alien soldier found strange symbols drawn on a wall. It was the word hope written in human blood. Zorak stared at the image through the live feed. He didn't understand it. Hope, he repeated, the word feeling heavy in his mouth. How does that defeat an army? But it did, slowly, silently, and invisibly. Hope kept humans fighting when logic said to stop. They built weapons from scrap, turned cars into bombs. They used music to send coded signals, even captured alien translators to trick Zorak's forces. Zorak soon realized that no matter how much land he took, he was never truly winning. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. He began to lose sleep. His mind filled with the faces of those fearless soldiers, men who looked death in the eyes and smiled one night. His ship's sensors detected strange heat patterns, hundreds of small fires across the wastelands. At first, Zorak thought it was humans burning their cities, but then his tech officer spoke, voice shaking. Commander, it's not fire, it's campfires, thousands of them. Humans were gathering, singing songs in the ruins, their voices echoing across destroyed cities. Even his soldiers could hear them, and it made them uneasy. Zorak ordered an attack at dawn, but by the time his ships reached the coordinates, the humans were gone. All that remained were messages painted on walls and burned metal. We are still here. You can kill us, but not all of us. Zorak slammed his fist on the console. What drives them? He growled. Vekran replied softly. Fear, Commander. Maybe they fear extinction. Zorak turned sharply. No, it's not fear, he said. It's something stronger. Something that makes them dangerous. Later that day, a captured human was brought before him. A young woman, dirty, bruised, but calm. Zorak asked, Why do you fight when you know you cannot win? The woman looked up, blood on her lips, and said, Because you came here thinking we are weak. But weakness does not mean surrender, alien. We fight because someone must. And because we can. Zorak stared at her. Speechless before he could respond, the human smiled faintly and whispered, You don't understand us yet, then. Before guards could stop her, she bit a capsule hidden in her teeth. A flash of light and she was gone. Self-destruction to protect her people's secrets. Zorak stood frozen, feeling something strange inside him. Respect. Hours later, his ship's sensors picked up a hidden radio broadcast from the planet. A human voice spoke slowly. This is Earth Resistance calling all survivors. If you can hear this, you are not alone. Remember, and we are the children of chaos. We will not bow. We will not break, the message repeated again and again. It reached alien soldiers' radios too. Some began to feel uneasy. Even machines felt the weight of those words. Zorak walked to the window and looked down at Earth. So small, so broken, yet burning with endless spirit. He whispered to himself, They fight with something I cannot destroy. He turned off the broadcast. But the words stayed in his mind that night. The human attacks became smarter. They hit supply ships, communication towers, and power stations. Every move was planned, every strike perfect. It was no longer chaos, it was strategy. Humans were learning fast, adapting faster than any alien species Zorak had seen. For the first time, the great commander began to doubt himself. His army had numbers, ships, and weapons. But humans had something invisible, belief. And belief was spreading faster than any virus. Zorak finally understood the truth his enemies lived by. Humans did not fight for land, or gold, or pride. They fought for each other. And that made them unstoppable. As the twin suns rose over the battlefield, Zorak whispered, "They do not need victory to win." The resistance flag waved over the smoking ruins, a piece of red cloth tied to a broken metal beam. Simple, small, but powerful enough to shake a galactic empire. And somewhere, hidden deep in the shadows, a human voice whispered into a radio, "Commander Zorak, if you are listening, this is not the end. This is just the beginning." Zorak stared at the horizon. The world he thought easy to conquer had become his nightmare. The resistance was no longer hiding, it was rising, and it was coming for him. And deep inside his alien heart, for the first time in his long life, the greatest warrior in the galaxy wondered, was he truly the hunter, or had he become the prey? The war had changed. The aliens still ruled the sky, but the ground now belonged to the humans. Every night explosions painted the horizon, and every morning smoke rose from both sides. Commander Zorak stood before his holographic map, watching red dots blink and vanish. Each red light was a lost unit, and every day more lights disappeared. His officers whispered about the humans. They said Earth itself was cursed. They said ghosts walked the cities and made soldiers vanish. But Zorak didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in logic, in power, in control, and yet something deep inside him was beginning to shake. For the first time in his long career, he did not understand his enemy. The humans were unpredictable. They had no clear strategy, yet they struck with perfect timing. They attacked when he thought they were broken. They disappeared when he tried to chase them. It was not war anymore. It was a nightmare made of smoke and whispers. Zorak's army began to fear the night. They said humans moved best in darkness. One squad reported seeing glowing eyes in the forests. Another claimed that human music played in empty ruins. No source, no signals. Just soft voices singing old Earth songs through broken radios. "We are the storm," the song said. "We are the flame that never dies." Zorak smashed the speaker in anger, but his heart beat faster. He had faced monsters, cyborgs, and mind hunters before, but none had made him feel like this. It was not the fear of death. It was the fear of something he could not control, human spirit. Later that night, Zorak entered the medical bay. Rows of alien soldiers lay in silence. Some were injured, others simply refused to speak. They stared at the walls, shaking. One soldier muttered again and again. They smiled. They smiled when they burned. Zorak grabbed him by the collar. "Who smiled?" The soldier's eyes widened. "The humans," he whispered. "They smiled at us before the fire swallowed them." Zorak released him and walked out. The air felt colder than space itself. He looked up at the Earth's moon. Calm, glowing, peaceful, but below that beauty, the humans were waiting. Every shadow could hide a trap. Every silence could be the start of another attack. Days turned into weeks. Zorak's army began losing not just battles, but courage. Supplies vanished, communication lines failed. Sometimes messages arrived late, sometimes not at all. And when they did, they came with strange symbols. Drawings of human skulls, words painted in red. "We are watching. We are coming." Zorak ordered full scans of all regions. He used drones, satellites, and scanners, but nothing worked. Humans moved like ghosts. Their heat signals were faint, their tracks erased. Even the ground seemed to protect them. They had turned their broken world into a weapon one night. Zorak visited a captured human base in the mountains. The place was empty, abandoned. Only one thing remained, a small table with human food, bread, water, and a note. The note read, "You eat, you sleep, you bleed, just like us. The difference is, we don't quit." Zorak felt his chest tighten. He crushed the paper, but his claws trembled. He looked around, silence, only the sound of wind. Then suddenly his radio cracked. "Commander," a voice said, "our eastern outpost is gone, destroyed." Zorak asked, "No, Commander," the soldier replied, voice shaking. "Vanished completely, not even dust remains." Zorak ordered the footage to be played. He watched in silence. A group of aliens guarding a valley. Then a flash of light and the screen turned white. When it cleared, everything was gone. Base. Soldiers, machines, nothing. Only a human flag stood in the middle of the crater. Fluttering in the hot wind, Zorak stared at the screen, his claws digging into the table. What kind of enemy leaves messages after death? He muttered. Vecron stood beside him, silent. Zorak whispered. They are not fighting for victory anymore. He turned to his officers. Eyes cold and burning. They are fighting to teach us fear. The next day, alien soldiers refused to go on patrols. They said the humans were inside their dreams. They said they heard voices whispering their names while they slept. Zorak punished them, but deep inside he too had started to hear things. A voice, quiet, calm, human, and echoing in his head. You don't belong here, it said. This is our home. Zorak began recording his thoughts. He told himself it was for the official report, but really, it was because he felt the need to talk, even to a machine. These humans, he said in the log, they fight with madness, yet their madness gives them strength. They have turned fear into a weapon, and now that weapon is turning against us. As the war dragged on, Zorak noticed something even more terrifying. His soldiers were starting to copy human behavior. They began to use human slang, human jokes. Some even drew human words on their armor for luck. The line between invader and victim was fading. That night, the commander couldn't sleep. He stared out at the burning sky and whispered, They are changing us. They are inside us now. A soft beep broke his thoughts. An incoming message from an unknown source. He hesitated, then played it static, then a voice, human, female. Commander Zorak, the voice said, you don't need to fear death. You need to fear what you'll become when you understand us. The message ended. Zorak froze, his heart pounding like a drum. He looked at his reflection in the glass for a brief moment. He thought he saw human eyes staring back. He stepped away, breathing hard. The great alien war hero, the conqueror of worlds, now stood alone, afraid of the smallest, strangest, and most dangerous species he had ever met, humans. And as the night grew darker, he whispered into the silence, They are not the ones afraid anymore. We are. The wind howled across the ruins below, carrying the faint sound of human laughter. Soft, fearless, endless. And for the first time, Commander Zorak wished he had never come to Earth. The battlefield was quiet now. The smoke had settled, the explosions had stopped. But silence did not bring peace, it brought something heavier. Realization. Commander Zorak stood alone on the cliffside. Below him lay the ruins of his once great army. Metal wreckage scattered across the earth like broken bones. The ground glowed faintly from the heat of past fire. He could still smell ash, the smell of defeat. For the first time in his life, Zorak felt something no warrior of the Zinthar Empire had ever felt. Exhaustion, not of body but of spirit. He had conquered worlds, crushed rebellions, but never before had he fought against belief. He looked up at the stars, so many of them bright and endless. He used to think the galaxy was his to command, but now under this strange blue sky, he wasn't sure of anything anymore. The humans had changed everything. They were supposed to be weak, fragile, emotional, and yet, those same emotions made them unstoppable. Fear turned to courage, pain turned to strength. Every loss made them stronger. Every death made them fight harder. Zorak opened his battle log and began to record. His voice was softer than usual. Log entry 511, he said slowly. The human species is unlike any enemy I have faced. They do not fight for power or survival. They fight because they must. They fight because they believe something greater than fear exists. He paused. Staring at his reflection in the glass, the once proud war hero now looked older. Tired, his armor was cracked, his eyes dull, but something inside them had changed. A spark of understanding. Zorak remembered the human woman, Captain Mira. Her voice still echoed in his mind. You came to teach us fear, but now you're the one who's afraid. At first, he had hated those words, now they felt true. Humans did not need technology to win. They only needed a reason, and they always found one. That night, Zorak sat alone inside his ship's war room. Outside, lightning flashed across the dark clouds. He stared at old recordings, moments from the war. Humans fighting, falling, getting back up again. He watched one soldier carry his wounded comrade through fire. He watched a medic tending to both alien and human injuries. He saw children passing food to soldiers. Each clip made his chest feel heavier. Vecron entered quietly. Commander, the council is demanding a report, he said. Zorak nodded slowly. Tell them, He paused. Tell them we have found the strongest species in the galaxy. Vecran frowned. Strongest? They are dying, Commander. Zorak turned toward him, eyes glowing faintly. No, Vecran, they are living, even while dying. And that is something I never understood. The next day, the human forces attacked again, but this time, Zorak didn't fight to destroy them. He fought to see them and to understand them. He flew above the battlefield, watching humans charge against impossible odds, their lines breaking and reforming like waves. He saw Captain Mira again, leading her troops with fire in her eyes. No superpowers, no alien strength, just pure will. She looked up at his ship, as if she knew he was watching. Zorak felt something strange, respect, admiration, and fear. He whispered to himself, "How do you defeat something that refuses to give up?" His ship trembled as missiles struck from below, but he didn't move. He stood still, staring down. He understood now, this war was never about weapons. It was about hearts. When night fell again, Zorak ordered a retreat to orbit. His soldiers were shocked. "Commander, are we surrendering?" One asked. Zorak looked at him. "No, we are surviving because they already have what we lack." The soldier tilted his head. "And what is that, Commander?" Zorak turned toward the window, watching Earth's glow below. "Purpose," he said quietly, "and unity." Inside his quarters, Zorak opened the captured human database. He read their stories, wars, disasters, victories. He saw that humans had destroyed themselves many times, yet somehow they always rebuilt. They learned from pain. They evolved through mistakes. Their history was full of blood, but every line in it ended with hope. He spoke to his recorder again. "The humans are chaos given meaning. They are destruction wrapped in compassion. They destroy to protect. They burn to rebuild. I do not fear their weapons anymore. I fear their minds, because they will never stop learning." He paused, then added quietly, "If they ever leave this world and reach the stars, the galaxy will belong to them." Zorak's army began to crumble from within. Many soldiers no longer wanted to fight. They whispered that the humans were cursed. Some said Earth was alive and protecting its children. Zorak didn't silence them anymore. He didn't believe in curses. But he did believe in the unexplainable. The next morning, Vecran approached him again. "Commander, shall we prepare for the next assault?" Zorak shook his head. "No more assaults, Vecran." He stepped closer to the viewport. The sunlight broke through the clouds, touching the blue oceans below. "Look at them," Zorak said. "They have nothing, yet they have everything." Vecran said nothing. Zorak continued, "We came here to conquer a planet, but we found something greater, a mirror." He looked down at his reflection. "They showed us what courage really is. Not the courage to kill, but the courage to keep going, even when everything is lost." That night, the humans launched one final counterattack. But Zorak didn't fight back. He ordered his ships to hold fire. He watched the missiles rise through the clouds and fade. Then he sent a single message to Captain Mira. "You have won, not the war, but my respect." He turned off the transmission and stood silently. For the first time, the great alien warrior bowed his head. As dawn came, the humans cheered across the ruins. They didn't know if they had truly won, but they knew something had changed. High above the planet, Zorak looked one last time at Earth and said softly, "They are not survivors. They are evolution itself." And in that moment, he finally understood. The real enemy was not humanity's power. It was their persistence, their ability to rise again. No matter how many times they fell, Commander Zorak turned away and whispered into the silence of space, "The humans are not just dangerous, they are destiny." The war had changed. The aliens still ruled the sky, but the ground now belonged to the humans. Every night explosions painted the horizon, and every morning smoke rose from both sides. Commander Zorak stood before his holographic map, watching red dots blink and vanish. Each red light was a lost unit, and every day more lights disappeared. His officers whispered about the humans. They said Earth itself was cursed. They said ghosts walked the cities and made soldiers vanish, but Zorak didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in logic, in power, in control, and yet something deep inside him was beginning to shake. For the first time in his long career, he did not understand his enemy. The humans were unpredictable. They had no clear strategy. Yet they struck with perfect timing. They attacked when he thought they were broken. They disappeared when he tried to chase them. It was not war anymore. It was a nightmare made of smoke and whispers. Zorak's army began to fear the night. They said humans moved best in darkness. One squad reported seeing glowing eyes in the forests. Another claimed that human music played in empty ruins. No source. No signals. Just soft voices singing old Earth songs through broken radios. "We are the storm," the song said. "We are the flame that never dies." Zorak smashed the speaker in anger, but his heart beat faster. He had faced monsters, cyborgs, and mind-hunters before, but none had made him feel like this. It was not the fear of death. It was the fear of something he could not control, human spirit. Later that night, Zorak entered the medical bay. Rows of alien soldiers lay in silence. Some were injured, others simply refused to speak. They stared at the walls, shaking. One soldier muttered again and again. They smiled. They smiled when they burned. Zorak grabbed him by the collar. Who smiled? The soldier's eyes widened. "The humans," he whispered. "They smiled at us before the fire swallowed them." Zorak released him and walked out. The air felt colder than space itself. He looked up at the Earth's moon. Calm, glowing, peaceful, but below that beauty, the humans were waiting. Every shadow could hide a trap. Every silence could be the start of another attack. Days turned into weeks. Zorak's army began losing not just battles, but courage, supplies vanished, communication lines failed. Sometimes messages arrived late, sometimes not at all. And when they did, they came with strange symbols. Drawings of human skulls, words painted in red. "We are watching. We are coming." Zorak ordered full scans of all regions. He used drones, satellites, and scanners, but nothing worked. Humans moved like ghosts. Their heat signals were faint, their tracks erased. Even the ground seemed to protect them. They had turned their broken world into a weapon. One night, Zorak visited a captured human base in the mountains. The place was empty, abandoned. Only one thing remained: a small table with human food, bread, water, and a note. The note read, "You eat, you sleep, you bleed, just like us. The difference is, we don't quit." Zorak felt his chest tighten. He crushed the paper, but his claws trembled. He looked around, silence, only the sound of wind. Then suddenly his radio cracked. "Commander," a voice said. "Our eastern outpost is gone. Destroyed?" Zorak asked. "No, Commander," the soldier replied, voice shaking. "Vanished completely, not even dust remains." Zorak ordered the footage to be played. He watched in silence. A group of aliens guarding a valley. Then a flash of light and the screen turned white. When it cleared, everything was gone. Base, soldiers, machines, nothing. Only a human flag stood in the middle of the crater, fluttering in the hot wind. Zorak stared at the screen, his claws digging into the table. "What kind of enemy leaves messages after death?" he muttered. Vekran stood beside him, silent. Zorak whispered, "They are not fighting for victory anymore." He turned to his officers, eyes cold and burning. "They are fighting to teach us fear." The next day, alien soldiers refused to go on patrols. They said the humans were inside their dreams. They said they heard voices whispering their names while they slept. Zorak punished them, but deep inside he too had started to hear things. A voice, quiet, calm, human, echoing in his head. "You don't belong here," it said. "This is our home." Zorak began recording his thoughts. He told himself it was for the official report, but really, it was because he felt the need to talk, even to a machine. "These humans," he said in the log, "they fight with madness, yet their madness gives them strength. They have turned fear into a weapon, and now that weapon is turning against us." As the war dragged on, Zorak noticed something even more terrifying. His soldiers were starting to copy human behavior. They began to use human slang, human jokes. Some even drew human words on their armor for luck. The line between invader and victim was fading. That night, the commander couldn't sleep. He stared out at the burning sky and whispered, "They are changing us. They are inside us now." A soft beep broke his thoughts, an incoming message from an unknown source. He hesitated, then played it, static, then a voice. "Human, female." "Commander Zorak," the voice said, "you don't need to fear death. You need to fear what you'll become when you understand us." The message ended. Zorak froze, his heart pounding like a drum. He looked at his reflection in the glass for a brief moment. He thought he saw human eyes staring back. He stepped away, breathing hard. The great alien war hero, the conqueror of worlds, now stood alone. afraid of the smallest, strangest, and most dangerous species he had ever met, humans. And as the night grew darker, he whispered into the silence, "They are not the ones afraid anymore. We are." The wind howled across the ruins below, carrying the faint sound of human laughter, soft, fearless, endless. And for the first time, Commander Zorak wished he had never come to Earth. The war was over, or at least that's what the silence made it feel like. The skies above Earth were quiet now. The once mighty Zinthar fleet floated in ruins. The humans had stopped firing, and Commander Zorak, the war hero of 1,000 victories, sat in the wreckage of his ship. He stared out through the shattered glass. Earth rotated slowly beneath him, blue, green, and scarred, beautiful in a way that hurt his eyes. The planet he had tried to conquer was now the one teaching him what fear truly meant. Zorak's claws tapped on the metal console. His armor was broken, his body weak. But something inside him, something older than pride, kept him awake. He opened his communication log for one last time and began to record. "This is Commander Zorak of the Zinthar Empire," he said, voice heavy and low. "To the Galactic Council, I report the failure of our campaign on Earth." He paused, the silence pressing against him. "But this failure is not because of weapons, not because of numbers. It is because we face something our empire never prepared for, humanity." He leaned back, staring at the dim lights of his control room. "They are small, fragile creatures, yet they hold the universe in their hearts. We believed they would surrender once their cities burned. But they rebuilt among the ashes. We believed they would fear death, but they walked into it smiling." His claws trembled as he continued, "I have seen courage in my warriors, but I have never seen madness like theirs. They fight with laughter, they die with songs. They do not fight for themselves, and they fight for each other." He took a deep breath, the sound echoing in the empty chamber. "Humans have something we do not understand, something that makes them terrifying. They call it hope." He stopped the recording for a moment. His eyes burned as he remembered Captain Mira, her voice, her strength, her defiance. She was still out there, somewhere on that wounded planet. He had seen her once more before the end. During the final ground battle, it was near the ruins of an old city. Zorak's troops had cornered the last group of humans. They were out of ammo, out of food, out of time. Yet they didn't run. They stood together in the rain, waiting for him. Mira stepped forward, unarmed. Zorak had pointed his plasma weapon at her. "Surrender," he said coldly. She shook her head. "You still don't understand, do you?" She replied, "We don't surrender. Not because we think we'll win, but because if we stop fighting, the world stops moving." Then she looked up at the sky, and Zorak followed her gaze. Human airships, old, patched, broken, were rising. Every pilot knowing they would never come back. It was a suicide strike, and yet they smiled through the glass as they flew. The explosions came seconds later. Light brighter than the sun, Zorak's troops were thrown back. When the smoke cleared, the humans were gone, but their flag still waved in the rain. Now sitting in his ship, Zorak could still see that flag in his mind. He restarted the recording. "The humans destroyed us not with power, but with meaning. Every life they lost became a story. Every tear became a promise. And now, even though I still live, I know we are the ones truly defeated." He exhaled slowly. The war hero was confessing, and not to his leaders, but to himself. "I came here as a conqueror," he whispered, "but I will leave as a witness. A witness to something greater than war." Zorak looked at his reflection in the cracked glass. For a moment he thought he saw his old self, strong, proud, fearless. Then it faded, replaced by something else, a being who had finally learned humility. He turned his gaze back to Earth. "They will reach the stars one day," he said softly. "And when they do, the galaxy will remember their kindness. Or their vengeance." His voice shook. "I hope it's kindness." He ended the recording and sealed it for transmission. But before sending it, he played it back as he listened to his own words. He felt something he never expected to feel. Peace. Not the peace of victory, but the peace of truth. Hours later, rescue ships from the Zinthar fleet arrived. They boarded his damaged cruiser. An officer bowed. "Commander Zorak, the council awaits your report." Zorak stood slowly, armor scraping against the metal floor. He looked at the young alien before him, full of pride, and said quietly, Be careful when you speak of Earth, the officer frowned. Why, Commander? They are only primitives. Zorak's expression hardened. No, he said. They are everything we're not. He handed the officer a small data crystal. His confession. Deliver this to the Council, he said. Let them know that if humans ever come to the stars, it won't be as conquerors. He turned away, looking out the viewport. It will be as survivors, the officer saluted and left. Zorak remained still, staring at the blue planet below. Lightning flashed across its surface, but this time he didn't see destruction. He saw life, raw, fearless, eternal, as his ship prepared to depart. Zorak whispered to himself, They terrify me, not because of their power, but because of what they awaken in us. The engines roared to life. The wrecked fleet slowly began to rise, leaving behind the battlefield, but Zorak's mind stayed on Earth, on its people, its courage, its madness. He looked at the stars and said one last time, If there is a God in this universe, it lives inside the heart of a human. The stars reflected in his eyes. The warrior who once feared nothing, now feared what he could finally understand, humanity. And as his ship vanished into the cold silence of space, the planet below continued to burn, not with war, but with the fire of life, unbreakable, unending, unstoppable. Years had passed since the war for Earth. The fires were gone, the smoke had cleared, but the scars remained, and on the land, on the sky, and in the hearts of those who survived. The humans rebuilt their cities from the ashes, brick by brick, hand by hand. They didn't just restore their world, they transformed it. They planted forests where bombs had fallen. They turned broken battlefields into gardens. And under the same stars that once saw death, they began to live again, far beyond the planet's orbit, drifting between moons. Commander Zorak sat alone inside an old observation ship. He was no longer a commander. He had left the Zinthar Empire years ago. The Council called him a traitor. But Zorak didn't care. He had seen too much. He had learned too much. Every night he looked down at Earth. Watching its lights glow brighter each year, he still remembered the war. Every scream, every face, every word, but most of all, he remembered what the humans had shown him. That hope was stronger than fear. That weakness could become power. That survival could become purpose. He spent his days recording everything he had witnessed. His ship's walls were covered with symbols, stories and memories. He had become a historian, not for aliens, not for humans, but for truth. One evening, as the twin moons rose over Earth's curve, Zorak turned on his old recorder again, the same one he had used during the war. It flickered to life, and he began to speak. This is Zorak of no empire, he said slowly. Once I was a warrior, proud and blind. I came to Earth to conquer, but instead, I was conquered, not by weapons, but by the human spirit. He paused, his claws gently touching the cracked console. They taught me something no victory ever could. They taught me that courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward despite it. Zorak looked out at the blue planet below, glowing like a living jewel. Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the smartest or the fastest, but they are the only ones who never stop trying. They fall, they bleed, they suffer, and then they rise again. He smiled faintly, a tired smile that came from somewhere deep inside. If they ever reach the stars, he whispered, no world will ever be the same. On Earth, in a rebuilt city once called New London, a group of young human explorers worked inside an observatory. They were tracking unknown signals from space. One of them, a girl named Lyra, noticed something unusual. A weak signal, old faint repeating. She adjusted the receiver, and slowly, a voice came through the static. This is Zorak. This is my confession. This is my truth. The humans gathered around, listening in silence. The voice was deep and weary. It carried the weight of a war long gone. I once called you enemies, the voice said. But now I call you something else, and the mirror of all life. Lyra's eyes widened. This is an alien recording, she whispered. The others stared at the glowing console. To any species who hears this message, the voice continued, do not fear humans for their strength. Fear them for their kindness. Fear them for their unity. The signal flickered. They will look small, fragile, lost, but if you harm them, if you try to break them, they will become everything you are not. And that will be your end. The room went silent. The young explorers didn't move. Some were afraid, others amazed. Lyra leaned closer to the speaker. "There's more," she said. The final words came slowly, heavy like the heartbeat of the universe. "This is my last message to the stars. Do not conquer Earth, do not test them, because what lies within a human soul cannot be destroyed." Then the signal faded into silence far above inside his ship. Zorak leaned back in his chair, eyes closing. He felt tired, not from the body, but from the journey. He had done what he needed to do. He had told the truth outside his window. The stars shimmered like sparks of fire. He imagined the humans down below, laughing, living, rebuilding, dreaming. They had moved on. They didn't even know that their greatest enemy had become their greatest witness. Zorak's systems began to power down. The engines hummed quietly. He smiled one last time. "Maybe one day. They'll find my message," he said softly. "And when they do, I hope they remember that even an enemy can learn." He looked one final time at Earth. "You taught me fear," he whispered. "But you also taught me what it means to live." His ship drifted silently into the void, becoming one with the stars, but his message continued to travel, crossing galaxies, echoing through systems. A warning, a truth, a legend. Centuries later, long after Zorak's ship vanished, explorers from another world found his transmission. They played it, listened, and fell silent because, in his words, they didn't just hear an alien voice. They heard humanity's echo, fierce, fragile, eternal. The message spread like fire among the stars. Some feared it, some respected it, but all remembered it and far away. On that small blue planet called Earth, children grew up looking at the night sky, dreaming not of fear but of adventure, because that is what humans do. They look at the impossible, and they go anyway. The camera pans out, Earth glowing softly beneath the stars. A whisper echoes across the cosmos. Zorak's final words, timeless, immortal, true. "You cannot conquer what never surrenders." The screen fades to black, and the story ends not with war, but with understanding, not with fear, but with hope. And so the legend of Earth began. The legend of a species that terrified gods and inspired the stars.